Let's do it. Amy, do you just want to? Well, actually, you know what? I'll say a couple words because like I think we have some new folks here, and then I'll just pass it over to Amy to rock it. So welcome everyone to our our cocktail session hangout thing. I don't know which one it is anymore. Maybe 8. It's been a real fun time with the journey with you guys so far. So in case this is your very first time, welcome. What we like to do here is we like to make a drink together. We like to drink that drink together. We like to talk about drinking, and then we like to drink, and then we talk. And that's pretty much it. And one thing that we really enjoy doing here is just featuring our bartender friends, because like they're at home right now, and it's really a treat to be able to hear from them and to be able to gain their experience, and to be able to support them a little bit. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So without further ado, this is our returning champ, Amy Probasco. She did our very first one with a professional with a Japanese highball, and now she's back to crush it with flips. So Amy, I'll give it to you.
Awesome. What's up, guys? It's so good to see you again. This is like the best ever. So we're actually going to do one of my favorite cocktails, which is a flip. And when people see that an entire egg goes into this cocktail, they often get a little freaked out. But let me reassure you that there is no reason to freak out. Any of you who have ever had eggnog or eaten tiramisu, traditional, my mom's very Italian, like you don't cook the eggs in your tiramisu, some types of chocolate mousse, you've all had raw eggs, it's okay. I actually got to talk to Cameron, who is someone that I adore and learn from all the time. You all are the only ones that learn from her, I do too. So we talked a lot about salmonella and what it actually is and what happens with the eggs. So if you have any questions, I can answer like the top, maybe like surface level 10% of them. And then after that, we will Google together. But we're gonna make a flip. Have you guys made egg white cocktails before? Are we mildly comfortable with that? Okay, great. Well, we're gonna talk you through it. It's gonna be amazing. So the very fun thing about flips rather than egg whites is like the whole egg is gonna go in, which egg whites give you that super like bright, like really great, like silky texture. Multiply that by like 2 or 3, and the egg yolks add the proteins that like make it super silky, almost like a milkshake, which is why this is one of my favorite drinks, because I love milkshakes. So flips actually began, if you see a flip with beer in it, it's not wrong. In like the 1600s, that's how a lot of, it was like a tavern drink. It was made in huge batches, and it was like a whole egg with rum and molasses, spices, and then they would add beer to it, and they would heat it up with like a long poker, like a hot iron, and it would froth up, and it would make what a flip is. And then like 2 centuries later, it appeared in like the late 1800s, and all of a sudden it was very specifically written in a book as like egg, sugar, spirit. That's it. Brandy and sherry were really popular. That's why I like to use Amaro. Sherry flips are some of my favorite. That lower ABV cocktail, and from that, Amaro flips kind of got into the thing. And if you all have a lot of Amaro left over from your recent session, this would be another great way to get rid of some of it, or utilize some of it rather than get rid of it. So let's talk about egg white cocktails. I use a shaker. If you have a mason jar or something that's not 2 parts, I would recommend having a separate bowl or a cup, because when you crack the egg, I don't like to put the egg in the same container that I'm building my cocktail, just in case, like when you use citrus, there's a chemical reaction that occurs with the egg white. This one doesn't have citrus, but I still, just as general practice, but if there's eggshells, I don't want to have to dump out the whole cocktail. I just like to have it in a separate vessel, and then I can add it in once everything else is done. Does that make sense? We'll start with the egg white. Cool. Okay, great. So let's talk about cracking the egg. So salmonella typically exists on the outside of the shell. If it exists at all. I mean, eggs, like there's vaccines now that chickens get that are anti-salmonella. They go through like a big power wash system. But salmonella doesn't exist so much in the egg, it's on the outside, if at all. Like seriously, it's not a thing. But if you crack it on your tin, you're pushing what might be germy and weird, not only back into the egg, but onto your vessel that you're gonna be shaking with. So now the germs are in a whole thing, right? This is not ideal. So what you wanna do is crack your egg on a counter or a cutting board surface. Yeah, so Sometimes I get a mess all over my counter. It just happens. It's okay. You can just use another egg. It's not a big deal. So you want to start by taking your egg and you're going to crack it right on the counter or the cutting board surface. Yeah. And then you can just put it right in. Oh yeah, just delicious. Yeah, get rid of that guy. I have a towel, but if you want to like rinse your hands, do that. I just washed my hands. We're feeling great. We're very sanitary. Yeah, so you have your egg either in a bowl or a cup or one of your tins. We're going to set that bad boy aside. We don't need him. Yeah, and then I like to start with the least expensive ingredient and go up to the most expensive just in case I mess up. And that way I'm not dumping out the most expensive thing because that would just be heartbreaking, not just wasteful, but very sad because I like to drink those things. So I'm going to start with I like to do simple syrup. Now, not everybody likes their drinks to be sweet. I do like a bar spoon of simple. Some of you mentioned that you had like a 2-to-1. That's fine. Like a thicker simple just means that you use less of it if you don't want it to be as sweet. Yeah, so if you want a sweeter cocktail, put a little more in. I just use a bar spoon. You could also do like a 1/2 ounce if you like your drinks a little bit sweeter. That's fine. My rule of thumb is you can always add more in. You can't take it out. So if you want to start with less, then you can add more. But once it's in there, it's in there. Yeah? Does that make sense for everybody so far? Questions? We're good? Okay, beautiful. So I have simple syrup, 1-to-1. If you haven't done this or this is your first time, just equal parts for me, granulated sugar and hot water. And you're just going to stir it until it dissolves and it becomes like a very cool syrup. You can put it in your tea. You can put it in your cocktails. You can do it. It's just so useful to have around the house. And you want to keep it refrigerated for up to like 3 weeks is usually like my rule of thumb. Yeah. So I'm going to put my simple syrup in. Just delicious. And now I'm going to do bitters. So Angostura, I feel like most people have, yeah. I happen to have some really beautiful Mexican chocolate bitters from Hella Bitters. One of my favorites to use for this drink, though, and Cameron and I both share this affinity, Fee Brothers Aztec chocolate bitters. Fee Brothers is an interesting bitters company because most bitters have alcohol in them. It's like a neutral grain spirit, and they steep all these herbs and spices and secret recipe ingredients. And Fee Brothers uses glycerin, so it tends to translate texturally a little sweeter on the palate, which is why I love it in this drink. I don't love it in every drink. It's, you know, it's one of those brands. It's like very specific for me on what drink I'm making as to like if this is the brand I want to use. But for this drink, I love it. However, it really doesn't matter. Whatever you've got that's like dark and earthy and delicious, throw it in there. I do like a solid 5 or 6 dashes. I don't want to see you dash like this. That doesn't count. That's not a dash. Flip the bottle over and give it some love. Just get it in there. Do it. Own it. Sell it. Yes. Yes. I can see it. I can see the dashes. You guys, that's so beautiful. I love it so much. Yes. Living for this. All right. So now we're going to take 2 full ounces of whatever Amaro. Averna is my favorite. It's just got these really beautiful notes of like kind of cocoa and cola with like a bitter citrus. It's also like, it tends to read a little sweeter to me, which I really enjoy. 2 ounces or 2 tablespoons. If you don't have a jigger, 2 tablespoons is 2
tablespoons. 4 tablespoons.
Oh, 1 ounce. You're right. Sorry, Cam. Thank you. 1 ounce is 2 tablespoons. I can do math, I promise. So you're going to do 2 parts or 4 tablespoons. Right in there. All right. Now, before we combine all of our forces, let's chat. We're going to do what's called a dry shake because we have to emulsify all of the ingredients. So you want the egg and all of those liquids to become best friends. And it takes a little while for them to get to know each other. So you're going to put the 2 parts together and you're going to shake it like you mean it, right? And then we're going to add ice. And that's going to give you the dilution and the chilling that you want to do. Yes? Beautiful? All right. Some people do what's called a reverse dry shake, where they do it with the ice first, and then they strain it out, and then they shake it. When you whip eggs, it creates this really beautiful foam with all these bubbles. I'm not going to get into the science, mostly because I'm not a scientist, but Cameron can answer any questions that you have later. For me, though, the foam bubbles, when you start without ice, are a lot denser. They're closer together. So the foam is a little bit thicker and it stands up better. If you do ice first and then you shake it, the bubbles are a little bigger and more spread apart. So at first it looks beautiful because it's a bigger foam, but it doesn't last as long because the bubbles aren't as condensed. So it kind of like dissipates a little bit quicker, which I don't like. I want it to like be strong and stand up. So I like to dry shake first. So we are going to combine them. We're going to shake it like we mean it. Then we're going to add ice and shake it again. Yes? After we shake it, I like to have my cocktail glass ready because the longer it stays on the ice, the more diluted it gets. Yeah, so you're just letting it sit there and it's just melting. All that ice has been messed up. I like to have it ready to go. So as soon as I'm done shaking, I can pop that strainer on and go to it. So if you have a glass, I have a real cute little coupe guy here. Sometimes just like a baby cocktail glass. This drink's not like a tall super glass. You don't need like a pint glass for it. It's relatively cute and small. Also, if you want to take this moment, I didn't really talk garnish, but I do love like cinnamon or nutmeg on the top of this. So if you have any at your house in a cabinet somewhere and you want to grab it as like a garnish, this would be a beautiful time to do that. I'll give you a couple seconds to go do that. I don't actually have any whole pieces, which I love if you have like a fresh grated situation. That is not my current life situation. So I have just the most beautiful seasonings. And what I usually do is actually put it in the palm of my hand first. That way it doesn't like explode all over the drink. And I can control better what it is. I would never do this at a bar, right? Obviously not sanitary, but I'm in my house. I'm the only one drinking this. I just washed my hands. Totally fine. Yeah? So if you have cinnamon or nutmeg, either or both, whatever, live your best life, this is your moment. All right, so we're gonna shake. We're gonna add ice. We're gonna shake again. And then we're gonna strain it into our vessel. Yeah? It's not gonna have the same head that an egg white cocktail is because those egg yolk proteins are actually gonna like calm that down a little bit, but it's still gonna be so silky. It's gonna be the most delicious thing. I'm so excited for you to try it. All right, are you ready for your dry shake? Here we go. We're gonna combine them. Shake it up, let me see it. Oh, those are good shakes, you guys. Those are sexy. Yes, that looks so good. Oh, I'm very into this. This is amazing. All right, you really just need to do like 10 or 15 seconds. Get some muscle in there. All right, now we're gonna pop it. Add a little bit of ice. We're gonna shake it again. Here we go. All right, when your shaker feels cold, you know you're done. And then we're just gonna strain that bad boy right into our glass. Stop it, she's so pretty. Does everybody have it in their glass? How are we doing, okay? I'm gonna go with a little bit of nutmeg. That's like the traditional. That was like specified in the 1800s. It was like spirit, sugar, egg, nutmeg. It was the whole situation. So I'm just gonna stay tried and true. Again, if you're not using fresh grated, I like to put it in my hand first and then you can control the sprinkle. All right, how did we do? How are we feeling? Did you guys try it? It's so good. I mean, I just can't even handle my life right now. How do we feel? Do we have questions? Do you love it? Talk to me.
I think I didn't make enough foam on the top of mine. Does that mean I like didn't shake it enough, or what do you?
I typically, when I don't do that, that means one of two things. Either the first shake, the hard shake, wasn't enough. But what typically happens with me, I actually talked to Cameron about this because my foams are not very consistent. I'm going to be very honest with you. Egg white cocktails are tough. if you over shake, what happens is all of those proteins that need to combine, there's so much liquid, and when that ice is in there, you actually make it like it's too much liquid, too much dilution, so that the proteins won't combine and make that beautiful foam. Cameron, feel free to chime in with the actual scientific knowledge. But typically for me, it's the second stage. I over shake it, and then I like make it so the foam won't happen. It's not a lot of foam though. I don't know if you could see, like it's very thin on top. And honestly, even especially for flips, you don't really need, people aren't looking for the foam and looking for like the overall texture, like a little bit of foam. Egg white cocktails is when you get like those big heads on the top. This isn't that drink. So if it's really thin, that's totally fine. The silkiness and the texture is really what we're going for, especially if this is like your first time making one. Just enjoy the drink texture, and you can work out the foam situation.
How's everyone's drink? Amy, this is great. This tastes like a Frappuccino.
Isn't it so good?
Super good.
Oh my God, it does. It does taste like a Frappuccino.
Absolutely delicious, yeah.
It's like my favorite after dinner cocktail.
Yeah, I love flips. It's like what boozy milkshakes wish they were, but they're actually good.
Yes.
I've never ever had a flip. This is my first one. Delicious.
What do you think?
Very good. Yeah.
Nice. I like to do these for Christmas instead of eggnog, just because it's like less heavy, like all that cream and all that extra stuff. So I've got my mom, she's into the flip now, so we're good on the holidays. Any questions? How do we feel?
This is delicious. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It still weirds me out mentally that I'm drinking a raw egg, but
I mean, that's fair. Not everybody can be Arnold Schwarzenegger. Or who was it? Rocky Balboa? Didn't he drink raw eggs?
Yeah.
yeah. I did get a workout in right before this just to kind of take care of that. But yeah, I mean,
now you're gonna have to get a couple afterwards, you know. Gotta get that protein in right afterwards, right?
right.
Who needs muscle milk? We have flips. It's fine.
Yeah, that's right. You shake. Your shaking was enough of a workout.
Yeah, we're like to the elbows and stuff. Shaking is a lot of fun once you get your rhythm down. It's one of my favorite things to do.
And can you talk a little bit about like other combinations that go with in flips as well? I had a more flip once. Good. Great. Yeah.
Another combination for flips.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, you can do, the one thing I don't usually put in flips, I was talking to Cameron about this too, is citrus. It's not really, I had a flip, people do whiskey flips. Like I used to work at a bar, we had it on a menu with it was 2 ounces of Buffalo Trace with a little bit of simple syrup, Angostura bitters, and an egg. It's delightful. I've also done like cocktail flips with like aged rum, banana liqueur, a little bit of Fernet, a little bit of Verna, right? So you've got all those kind of creamy flavors that work together. I usually try to stay in that 2 ounce ratio. So it's like, for me, cocktails are like maps. So you have like a blueprint, and then it's like you can kind of switch out the parts, different things. But get creative with it. If you have like rum laying around the house or like a liqueur that you want to put with your Amaro, like put them in there and see what happens. Yeah, you were gonna say something. I thought.
Oh, sorry. What I was gonna say earlier was like one of the fun things about egg white cocktails and flips in particular is that oftentimes when I do cocktails, like you should say, I can't make mine fluff up like you make yours fluff up. And what they don't realize is that bartenders are incredibly strong. And so the more of these you make at home, the better your cocktails will be. Because like when I started bartending, I was a teeny tiny little 18-year-old kid. I literally went up a shirt size because my back spread. So dude, on that whole back, just make a ton of home, and you too, the muscle monster you're drinking.
Does anybody else have questions about flips? Have you guys had eggnog? Has everybody had eggnog before?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that enthusiasm. So like if you can do that, you can drink this. It's the same. It's a raw egg situation. It's honestly so safe. It's like, it's not, it feels weird, but it's so delicious.
Is eggnog just a bourbon flip? That's the way, like, I feel like that's the way my family made it, was basically booze with an egg in it.
Yeah, my family, we do an array of like spices, and they actually prefer like a rum eggnog, but it's a bunch of cream and eggs. That's really all. It's like cream and eggs, and you.
I guess the cream is the thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so the cream is what makes it a little heavier, I think.
Yeah.
But that's essentially it is. Like if you took this and added a bunch of cream to it and some extra spices, like, same.
Yeah, it doesn't really taste like I want anything creamy. It's like already so creamy.
Yeah.
Right? I totally agree. It's interesting. The proteins in the egg, just like, it's a texture thing. Like when people are like, why do you put egg whites in cocktails? Why do you put eggs? It just is so pleasing texturally. It's like, why don't you? You know what I mean?
And I think I can't tell if it's the bitters or whether it's the Amaro, or probably the combination gives you the spices that you normally would have almost in an eggnog. So
Absolutely. I think honestly, you're right. It's both. The interesting thing about these are both technically, I mean, like they're both kind of bitter, right? This is like a potable bitter, drinkable, and then like non-potable. So you take essentially this is a base, like a super concentrated alcohol with herbs and spices, and you add sugar and like water as a lengthener and make it like a drinkable bitter, right? But it has, nobody really releases all of the ingredients in their bitters. It's like top secret, right? Like only 3 people in the world know or whatever. But there's so many different herbs and flowers and roots that go into these bitters that it's just like a beautiful layering of all the flavors.
Is it weird that potable makes me think of the sticker on the mirror in the bathroom on airport? Like literally, I think that's the only place I've ever seen that word used in other places.
No, I don't think that's weird.
I like your version much better. Your version's a much more appealing version.
But now that's what I'm going to think of every time I see it.
You're welcome.
Let's see. So before we move on, I just want to say a couple things, as I always do. Thank you, Amy, again, for your expertise. This was super good.
I'm so glad you guys like it.
I'm also going to make, I'll make this quick because I'm going to make another drink real fast. I'll make another flip. It's super good. Once again, I always think it's a really nice thing to tip your bartender. I think Amy's Venmo is just Amy-Probasco. If you would think about it, if you feel compelled, please do that. Once again, Amy is a great presenter and also a wealth of knowledge. Let's see, I'll also take a second to talk about what we're doing next week. So next week, we will be featuring a dear friend of mine, a Jean Banchet award-winning bartender. My old friend, Amit Gilad of Green River, is going to be teaching us the art of the daiquiri, which I'd be scared because that's like how bartenders get judged. But yeah, Amit's good for it. He's good for it.
It is how they get judged. You're right.
Yeah, so we should get all the industry folk and they can just, sling arrows at the very end of it or something. But hopefully we'll all learn something. I'm sure we will. His decks are super good. So I'll get an ingredient list pretty soon. It'll be daiquiri and also some variations on that. And if we're lucky, he'll also give us his recipe for Falerno, which could be pretty interesting. That'll be next week. But please stick around, keep on drinking. I'll have a couple more of these. If you got more questions for Amy, but once again, her Venmo is at Amy-Probasco. I'm done. Also, it's a joy seeing you guys every single week. This makes me very, very happy.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for being here.
Cheers.
Time to break some more eggs.
So what else would be good instead of Amaro? Like if we tried something else?
I love brandy flips. Just like the sweetness in them are really good. And honestly, a dry sherry. You have like an Oloroso sherry. It's got like nuttiness and like the glycol portions of it. It just makes it so much more creamy and silky. It's brandy and sherry are my 2 favorites. Whiskey is also very popular. I like rum if it has other flavors in it. Like I would do like an aged rum with a Verna and maybe, some creme de cassis or, just something maybe fruity or like a passion fruit or just something to kind of tie it all together with the tropical notes. But sherry and brandy are my favorite, for sure.
I just bought this bottle of sherry and I've never opened it. So.
Oh my God, that's perfect.
It's an extra dry sherry or very dry sherry.
Yeah, no, that's gonna be great. It's gonna be so delicious, and you can do like Angostura bitters or orange or stick with the chocolate. It's gonna have like sherry has this beautiful kind of like.
I do have orange bitters. Should I use orange bitters with it?
Try it out. It's got this really pretty like nutty note to it. I would even do maybe like orange and Ango, like one of each. Because the Ango is going to give you some of that complexity, that spiciness that you like with kind of the cinnamon and clove notes. I think it would be delicious.
Good idea.
Do we use the same like 2 ounces of whatever liquor we use, even if it's much stronger?
Yes, I do whiskey all the time, or even brandy is like full proof. I would just do 2 ounces of that. If you want to cook it down, you can always do an ounce of whiskey and an ounce of like a lower proof liqueur. I love creme de coco. If you have that, it's kind of like a chocolatey-esque liqueur. I sometimes even put that in my Manhattans or my old fashions if I want something to be sweet without like too sugary. I just love dessert drinks. But yeah, you could proof it down with a Amaro, or even like another lower proof spirit for sure.
But the sherry also 2 ounces of, you would say?
I would get just 2 full ounces of sherry. I would do a little bit of that like simple syrup if you still have some of that 2-to-1.
Right.
And then a whole egg, and then like whatever bitters combo.
Okay.
And then just like your vermouth, you're gonna date that and store it in your fridge afterward.
Ma'am.
In the fridge?
Yep, just like your vermouth. It's it falls in the same category as vermouth and port and the fortified wines.
Right.
Okay, wait, which? The Averna does or the sherry does?
The sherry.
The sherry. Okay.
Yeah, since this series, I've had to buy a lot of new bottles and throw away a bunch of vermouth.
Yeah, the thing about vermouth also is it doesn't go bad. It's not gonna make you sick. It's not like, food where there's like an expiration date. It's more about the liveliness of the flavors. Like if you have fresh vermouth or vermouth that's been stored correctly, it's so bright and lively on your palate with all these. And it's kind of like if you leave wine out, right? It just kind of goes flat. Like it's not bad. You can still drink it. It's just not quite as delicious if you leave it on your counter overnight or for 3 months. So you can still drink it, but if you want to get all of those like layered flavors, I usually buy my vermouth in smaller bottles for home use, because that way less of a chance that they're going to go flat. Like if you buy like a 375, if not, sometimes I just make me drink more martinis because I have more vermouth in the fridge, and that's fine too. So it's not going to hurt you. It's brighter and fresher if it's in the. I do that with my syrups too. If you guys, I don't know if you make like simple syrup, or I make honey syrup a lot, where I do honey and water, and that way it's easier to pour and use more. But I always date it, because like sometimes you forget and you're cleaning out your fridge like 8 weeks later, and you're like, can I still use this? When did I make this? So I just put a quick like do the masking tape on it and write the date, just so I know.
When you make syrups, do you like I make tonic syrup? Like, do you typically add like a little booze to it to keep it from?
Absolutely, that'll help fortify it. So that'll help it last a little longer. So adding just like a little bit of higher proof spirit to your simple syrup or your demerara or your tonic syrup is absolutely a way to kind of increase its shelf life for sure.
Awesome. Man, similar to Eric, I've got all this sherry in the house, and I don't know what to do with it. So maybe one of these days in the future, I'll have to do
Sherry and tonic.
Sherry cobblers. Did someone say that? Did I hear sherry cobbler?
I said sherry and tonic, but also cobblers. Also, Stacey Swenson is the queen of sherry.
Ooh. Hi. Well, if you'd like to do one in the future, we'd love to have you. Yeah.
So for any of you who are cocktail geeks, I'm going to sell her out real quick.
I was going to say, if you don't do it, I'm going to do it.
I was the head bartender at Dante here in New York City, which was
hey,
number one bar.
that's I'm like, oh, my best friend in New York's kind of famous. So Stacy, now that I've thoroughly embarrassed her,
But now I've retired and now I'm hanging shelves for a living.
now she hangs
so-
shelves for a living.
She's a Chicago baby. Before she was in New York, she was in Chicago. So she's covered all the bases.
Wow. Well, Pam, if you want to make an introduction via email or Facebook, Stacey would be very, very happy.
I can connect you all 100%. Stacy will do an all about sherry class.
Oh man, that's super
Do
exciting.
whatever she wants. She'll have you all making Garibaldi's.
Yeah, you know what
Because she has not made enough of those
I mean.
recently. I miss them. But yeah, she's the gal for sherry for sure.
Awesome.
We should do a Stacey sherry class. We get sherry and tonic, sherry cobbler. She'll tell you all you need to know. It's going to be delightful.
Yep. I almost feel bad because at the beginning of every week, I'm like, yo, you guys got to buy all these things for a home bar. And they're like, come on. And we're like, but you know, I actually don't feel bad because then like at the end of it, everyone's going to have an amazing home bar.
They are. They're going to have stunning home bars for display. It's pretty great.
And each bottle will have like a little memory that we had together. You know, oh, I remember that one.
But you know what we're doing though? Like every night we're drinking a cocktail. So like normally we wouldn't do that, or we'd have a Manhattan. But now like, oh, do you want a daiquiri? Do you want a brandy sour? Do you want a Campari? What were we drinking with Campari? The Americano. Like we're
the Americano.
making up all this stuff, like because we're learning how to do it.
Yeah, you have like a whole catalog of drinks you can make now. That's amazing.
Right. Yeah.
If you have rum and Campari in your bar, you can make a Jungle Bird, which is one of my personal favorites.
What?
What?
That sounds dangerous.
Cam, you should do a Jungle Bird class.
You want to schedule that one?
Yeah, we'll make all this. We'll make all this happen.
I was like taking notes. Like,
Let's do something.
Yeah, usually by the end of this, I need to take notes. Also forget everything.
So the sherry flip
is
like. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I said we need to make some cocktails that are like skinny-ish because like we're basically making meals.
From the opposite perspective, though, could Cam teach us how to make Archimedes?
That's a lot of work, but yeah, okay.
Do that. That's
martinis are very skinny. We could do martinis.
Leah told Doug to do that.
So we can do martinis. So Archimedes is a cocktail that I had on my charcoal bar menu like way back in the day. And I'll never forget. So we did that cocktail for a mixology, and we had to make.
Oh yeah, we did it here. Holy shit, yeah, we did.
And so there were these mason jars of heavy whipping cream, and it was like relatively early on when Pete and I had started dating, and I'll never forget Doug asking when the cream was done being shaken, and Pete just gave him this really defeated look and said, "I think it's done when she tells you it's done."
Yeah, that was like we made like what 60 of them in one night.
Yeah, so there were 60 attendees, and we did 4 cocktails in the span of an hour.
Yeah, right here. It was awesome. And I also
cocktail assembly line. The most efficient I've ever been at making drinks was just having Jeannie standing on my left with a scale and a bottle of batch, just weighing it out. So I was done shaking one. I'd hand it to Doug, and Doug was straining, and Jeannie was just measuring them out with the scale. We were very fast that night, and I was
amazing.
So exhausted afterward. Bonded forever.
Yeah, it was a good night. Yeah.
I admire people that cook with scales. I have no discipline. It's like the Great British Baking Show where they measure out like dough for like shortbreads. It absolutely blows my mind. I can't wait that long. They need to get in the oven. It's all winging it. No, I know. That's bad. That's why Kurt's making the cocktails. He's the precision guy.
It's not bad. It's definitely more fun.
Well, I have a question. in cooking, when you use eggs, some recipes, they like think the age of the egg matters a lot. Like you should use like a fresh egg or like an older egg. Does that matter in flips?
Amy, do you want to take it or you want me to?
I want you to take it.
Science. Science.
All of the science.
Don't hate on old people or eggs.
It does matter, but Cam's gonna tell you why.
Yes, it matters, but not as much as snobs. Probably more important in cocktails than in baking, honestly. So the reason that you want to use a fresh egg is that what makes an egg white cocktail fluff up is that there are these long chain proteins in the egg white called albumins. So in an egg, the protein is primarily in the white and then the yolk is primarily fat. And so when you have that egg white and it's nice, like we've all cracked an egg and it's like completely cohesive and the yolk stands up really nice and high and like the white doesn't have much liquid around it, it kind of stays together. That means that the albumins are fully hydrated, right? So the albumins are really effective at holding on to the water that's in the egg white. When you crack an older egg, or you may not have known it was an older egg, but you cracked an egg and like the white kind of ran away from it and the yolk like laid down and it was kind of flaccid, that is because the proteins are denaturing and they're not going to be as effective at holding on to each other. Because basically what's happening when you're making a meringue and baking, meringues are the one place where fresh eggs is going to make a really big difference because you're doing the same thing that you're doing when you're putting head on a cocktail. So you kind of have these like long gangly proteins that are like grabbing little pockets of air and holding on to them. And then when they stick back to themselves, that's what creates the air bubbles. And so if those proteins are denatured and they're not able to make those secondary bonds, then you're not going to be able to get a foam on it. Your meringue's not going to rise, whatever it is. So that's why a fresh egg would matter.
Thanks, Cam.
Yeah, thanks for answering my random question that with a lot more detail than I possibly expected, but really enjoyed.
Now you got your final credits for chemistry 202.
Dude, that better count for the freaking 600 level chemistry I had to take.
I feel like we should have a quiz at the end of all these cocktail classes. And just,
Oh, that would be good. I like that.
That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, open book, obviously, but yeah, for sure.
I feel like that's just going to result. So I did physics in part for my degree, and there was always this anecdote that this one physics professor would tell about how there was an open book test at Cal Berkeley that said you may consult Feynman, which was the textbook, the author of the textbook, except that Richard Feynman taught at Cal Berkeley, and some kid literally like took his exam and went to Dr. Feynman's office and was like, "Hey, help me with this." I feel like if you all have an open book quiz at the end, I'm going to be very busy.
Be careful, like Kurt and I have been puzzling that stupid Alinea puzzle thing. Like we've been literally like, our days have been consumed. I don't know if anyone else is doing it, but it's so much fun.
What is it, Bettina?
It's like the 15th anniversary Alinea mystery thing. It's like every 3 days they give you like this puzzle from the mystery league, and you can win like swag, like a signed copy of their book and like a signed chef, like a big final prize. But it's like really good puzzles, like not kind of like the simple things. Like it took us, like the hardest one I think took us what, 3 days of like almost getting divorced over it, yelling at each other.
Okay, what's this called? I need to get it.
I highly recommend it if you need kind of a mental break, or you have too many Zoom calls that you can be on mute and off camera and do something useful.
What's it called again?
It's just the Alinea, like the it's
Hillcow.com.
Hillcrow.